The Assassins. The complete story of the most bloody sect in Islamic history. The Ismailis emerged onto the stage of history after the death of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq in the year 148-765 CE. One of the results of his death was the conflict between his sons and his followers, leading to a division into several separate groups, among them being the early Ismailis. There is a general agreement among scholars of Ismaili affairs that a group of central leaders descending from Jafar al-Sadiq worked during this early period from various leadership centers to organize a Shiite movement opposing the Abbasid rule, considering them as usurpers of the legitimate rights of the Alawite family in leading the nation. Since the 3rd century, the Quietist call achieved particular success in Iraq, Persia, Eastern Arabia, and Yemen. These preachers called for the imamate of the Ismaili Mahdi, who would deliver them from the injustices of the Abbasids. They believed his rule would restore the caliphate to the deposed Alawites. The early triumph of the Ismaili Shiites culminated in the establishment of the Fatimid Caliphate in 297 909 CE in North Africa, when the Ismaili Imam was inaugurated into a new position, marking the first Shiite caliphate. The Ismaili Schism. The Fatimid Ismaili state fulfilled its political, intellectual, and military aspirations in the conflict against the Abbasids in Iraq. Egypt, captured by the Fatimids in 358-969 CE, became the center of the Shiite call and state in the Arab East. Concurrent with this political and territorial expansion, Ismaili thought flourished, and the Ismaili call, which had achieved significant successes in the political and intellectual scenes, continued to thrive. This success culminated in the famous Basasiri movement in 450 when the military commander Abu al-Harith Arsalan al-Basasiri revolted against the Abbasid state. When the Abbasid Caliph al-Amr al-fled, Baghdad became, for the first time, a Sunni Abbasid Caliphate province affiliated with the Fatimids, a turn of events that seemed catastrophic and unexpected at the time. However, the Seljuks quickly entered Baghdad, reclaimed Iraq and most of the Levant from Fatimid presence, restored order, and took on the responsibility of opposing the Fatimids both politically and militarily. In 487-1090 CE, the Fatimid Caliph al-Mustansir died, leading the Ismailis to split into two competing groups, the Nizariya and the Mustaliya. This division occurred after the powerful Fatimid minister, al-Afdal al-Jamali, who had absolute power at the time, successfully installed al-Mustansir's younger son, who he titled al-Mustali by law, 487 to 495 CE, 1094 to 1101 CE, denying Nizar, al-Mustansir's elder son and rightful heir, his legitimate claim to the caliphate. Ismailis in Egypt and the territories under the Fatimid regime recognized al-Mustali as imamate after al-Mustansir, and they became known as the Mustaliya. Meanwhile, Ismailis in Iran recognized Nizar's imamate and became known as the Nizariya. The emergence of the Assassin sect, founded by Hassan-i Sabbah al-Ismaili, and their capture of the Alamid fortress in Persia, specifically in the southwest of the Caspian Sea, since the year 483-1090 CE, played a significant role in the downfall of the Seljuks and the weakening of the Abbasids. The Assassins' imminent threat continued to challenge surrounding Sunni powers like the Zengids, Ayyubids, and Khwarezmians, in addition to their large-scale raids on nearby regions predominantly inhabited by Sunni Muslims. Hassan-i Sabbah was born in Ray, Iran, in 430-1039 CE. Some historians mention his birth in the city of Qom, a stronghold of Twelver Shiites, after which his family moved to Ray, a center of Ismaili activities, where he adopted the Ismaili Fatimid sect at the age of 17. Hassan continued to study Ismaili literature, enriching his knowledge and arguments. He also received teachings from Ismaili scholars. Eventually, he pledged allegiance to the Fatimid state and its call before an Ismaili emissary representing Abdul Malik ibn Attash, the chief Ismaili preacher at the time in western Iran and Iraq. In 464 AD 1070 CE, Abdul Malik ibn Attash arrived in Ray, where he met Hassan al-Sabbah and accepted his joining the Ismaili call, assigning him a specific role within this movement. Hassan was then asked to travel to Egypt to register his name in the Fatimid court in Cairo. Following this, Hassan traveled to Isfahan in 467-1075 CE, where he spent 2 years working for the Ismaili call as a deputy to Ibn Attash. He then journeyed to Egypt, arriving on the 30th of August in 471-1079 CE. He was warmly received by the chief of the preachers, Abu Daud, along with a group of prominent Fatimid dignitaries. Hassan quickly gained the favor of al-Mustansir, who showered him with favors and instructed him to invite people to acknowledge his imamate. Hassan then asked al-Mustansir, "Who will be the imam after you?" To which al-Mustansir pointed to his son Nizar. From that moment, Hassan pledged allegiance to Nizar bin al-Mustansir, although he spent 18 months in Cairo, where he faced intrigues from the followers of al-Mustali, especially the army commander Badr al-Jamali. He eventually had to leave Egypt, boarding a ship from Alexandria in the month of Rajab in 472 1080 CE. After a perilous journey, almost drowning near the shores of Syria, he arrived in Isfahan in Du al-Hijjah in 473 1081 CE. From that time, Hassan began advocating for Nizar, the eldest son of the Fatimid Caliph al-Mustansir, spreading his call in Yazd, Kerman, Tabaristan, Damghan, and other provinces of Iran, but avoiding Ray to evade the danger posed by the Vizier Nizam al-Mulk al-Tusi, who was eager to capture him, as evidenced by the orders issued against him. The Ismaili state in Iran. Morning moved within Iran, exploring it for 9 years, then decided to spread the call starting from the region of Dalam and Mazandaran. He avoided cities in his travels and preaching, preferring to move through the desert until settling in the Damghan area and turning it into a base for the Ismaili Nizari call. From there, he sent preachers to the mountainous areas to attract people to this call, continuing this for 3 years until it became a serious threat to the Seljuk presence in Iran. The Vizier Nizam al-Mulk ordered the arrest of the Ismaili leader, but he managed to escape to Qazvin. Hassan-i Sabbah's concern was not only spreading his call and gaining supporters, but also finding a suitable place to protect him from constant Seljuk pursuits. He aimed to make it a stable and secure base for spreading his preachers in Iran. Therefore, he avoided cities to evade detection and Seljuk control, eventually settling on his ambition, which he found in the formidable Alamut Castle. This castle was an ancient fortress atop a high rock in a rugged area, amidst mountains, at an altitude of 6,000 meters or more. It was built in a tightly fortified manner, with only one road leading to it, making it difficult for invaders to breach the rugged path. The exact founder of this castle is not known, but it is said that it was built by one of the ancient Dalamite kings and named it Aloha Amaut, meaning eagle's nest. Later, one of the local rulers, an Alawite, renovated it in 246 860 CE. It remained in his hands until the Ismailis seized it under the leadership of Hassan-i Sabbah in 483 1090 CE. Ibn al-Athir recounted their entry into this castle, saying, Hassan-i Sabbah used to move among the people, misleading them. When he saw Alamut Castle and assessed the people of that area, he stayed among them, sought to attract them secretly, showed asceticism, and disguised himself. Most of them followed him, and the Alawite castle owner trusted him, sitting with him for blessings. When Hassan consolidated his power, he entered one day and told the Alawite to leave the castle. The Alawite smiled, thinking it was a joke. But Hassan ordered some of his companions to remove him. They took him out to Damghan, gave him his wealth, and gave him ownership of the castle. Hassan-i Sabbah remained in this fortress for the rest of his life, not leaving it for 35 years until his death. He spent most of his time reading, planning to spread the Nizari Ismaili doctrine, corresponding with preachers, preparing plans. And his primary and constant concern was gaining new supporters, controlling fortresses, and new areas to expand the Ismaili influence. He continued sending preachers to villages surrounding Rudbar, adjacent to Alamut Castle. He also sent his militias to control surrounding fortresses, sometimes through deceptive methods, and other times through violent and bloody methods. When Hassan-i Sabbah managed to seize the Lamsar Castle through his militia's attacks between 489 and 495 1096 to 1102 CE, led by his agent Kia Bosorgmer, who ruled it for 20 years. It was a strategically important castle on a circular rock overlooking the Shah Rud area in central Iran, enabling the capture of the entire Rudbar region in northern Iran. In 484 1091 CE, Hassan-i Sabbah sent his preachers to the mountainous region of Kohistan near Alamut Castle, successfully converting its inhabitants by exploiting their dissatisfaction with Seljuk rule, making it part of the Ismailis territory. On the other hand, the people of Abhar region couldn't tolerate the Ismaili attacks, so they sent a plea to Sultan Barkiyaruk bin Malik Shah, leading to the sending of a military force to besiege them. The siege lasted 8 months, ending with the Seljuks taking control in 489 1096 CE, killing the Ismailis there, intensifying the enmity between the Seljuks and the Ismailis. The Bloody Assassins. The Ismailis were called the Batanis because they claimed that the Quranic verses and stories have inner meanings that flow within the external meanings like the core within the shell, which were symbols and signs for certain truths according to the wise and intelligent. Those who understood these truths and signs were exempt from religious obligations. As for their title al-Hashashin or Hashashia, they were given this name because they used to hide among the bushes to assassinate their opponents. It is said they consumed hashish before assassinations to ensure their resolve amidst the influence of this narcotic substance. The Hashashin group was known for its extreme brutality and boldness in facing opponents. Both the Sunni Muslims and Crusaders feared their ruthlessness and bloodshed, as well as their unexpected skills in espionage and assassination. In a report sent by one of the envoys to the German Emperor Frederick Barbarossa in the year 570 1175 CE, it was stated, "They have a leader who strikes the most terror in the hearts of all Arab princes, both near and far, as well as being feared by all neighboring Christian rulers, because it is his habit to kill them in a manner that invites astonishment." Faced with this imminent threat posed by the Ismaili presence in Iran, which was primarily a Sunni Seljuk stronghold, the year 485 i 1090 CE marked the true beginning of the Seljuks' confrontation with Hassan-i Sabbah. Sultan Malik Shah Seljuk launched two campaigns, one against Alamat Castle and the other against nearby Kohistan, but the trained Ismaili military units resisted the Seljuks with the help of sympathetic locals in Rudbar and Kazvin. This forced the Seljuks to retreat, especially after Sultan Malik Shah's death in the same year. Hassan-i Sabbah's major blow came with the assassination of the famous minister Nizam al-Mulk, just weeks after Sultan Malik Shah's death in 485 r 1090 CE. This assassination was one of the earliest major assassinations carried out by the Hashashins, a group dedicated to avenging their enemies, and marked the beginning of a long series of assassinations against kings, princes, military commanders, and religious figures, lasting until Hulag's occupation of Alamat Castle and the elimination of their power in the east. A period spanning about 2 centuries. Hassan-i Sabbah died in 518 1124 CE in Alamat, and sources differ on the fate of his descendants. Some sources mention that he killed his children during his lifetime, but most historical sources agree that he died without committing such a crime. He was succeeded by Buzurgumd Barzajmid in leading the sect, and he had entrusted others with the affairs of preaching, administration, and leading the Ismaili forces before his death, urging cooperation and collaboration until the appearance of the hidden imam, according to Ismaili belief. Despite Hassan-i Sabbah's death, armed conflicts continued between the Nizari Ismailis and the Seljuks, expanding their territories. The Hashashins managed to capture new fortresses, but the Seljuks contained their threat in 51107 CE when Sultan Muhammad Seljuk seized Shadut's castle near Isfahan, killing a large number of them, including Ibn al-Aydash, their prominent preacher in Iran, and his son. However, their threat persisted due to the presence of the fortified Alamat Castle. The Ismaili sect in the Levant. The first appearance of the Ismaili assassins in the Levant was in 498 1105 CE, when Hassan-i Sabbah sent his missionary to spread the doctrine and to disrupt the relationship between the two brothers Dakik, the ruler of Damascus, and Ridwan, the ruler of Aleppo, sons of Tutush ibn al-Baslan, the Seljuk ruler. The Ismaili preacher allied with Ridwan, persuading him to adopt the Ismaili doctrine and establishing an Ismaili propagation center in Aleppo. However, Ridwan's death led his successor, Alp Aslan al-Akraz, to turn against the Ismailis in that region. He managed to kill their leader, Abu Tahir al-Say, forcing the rest to flee. Their influence grew during the days of their preacher Bahram in Damascus and its surroundings in the first quarter of the 6th century AH. However, the anger of the people of Damascus towards this movement forced Bahram to flee with his followers. He then seized Bania's castle west of Damascus, but soon his threat re-emerged in the region. At that time, the Atabeg Tutakin, who initially supported them, awakened to the imminent danger personally threatening him. However, he died before confronting them, and his son Taj al-Mulk Buri succeeded him in ruling Damascus. During Bari's reign, his minister, al-Mazdagani, a supporter of the Ismailis, excessively protected his comrades. He even offered to hand over Damascus to the Crusaders in return for them giving him and the Ismailis the city of Tyre as a replacement. The two parties agreed on a date to execute this agreement during the Friday prayer when the people of Damascus were occupied. However, the plot was uncovered before its time, and Prince Buri killed his treacherous minister, issuing a decree to pursue the Ismailis throughout his territories. This action gained popular support even before the leaders, leading to the killing of 6,000 Ismailis before the middle of Ramadan in 523 1129 CE. At that point, their preacher Ismail al-Ajami sought help from the Crusaders stationed on the Syrian coast, seeking protection and refuge in exchange for handing over Bania's castle. These events marked the end of the Ismaili presence in the Levant. The end of the Ismailis in Iran. Despite the initial Mongol invasion of the Islamic East since 616 1219 CE and their capture of Iran among other territories, the Nizari Ismailis the assassins managed to establish relations with the Mongols at first. Some sources even claim that it was the Ismailis who invited Genghis Khan to eliminate Jalal al-Din Khwarazm Shah, the Sultan of the Khwarezmian Empire that inherited the Seljuk Empire in that region, due to the oppression and attempts at extermination they faced under his rule. However, they realized that the Mongol ambitions knew no bounds, and their conquests and expansions continued unabated. They feared this imminent threat and sought help from the Crusaders, with whom they had established relations since the early Crusades against the Seljuks, Zengids, and Ayyubids. They also attempted to form alliances with neighboring emirates and powers, including former enemies, to counter the looming Mongol danger. Yet, the sword struck before reconciliation could be achieved. On the other hand, there are other accounts confirming that many Muslims under the rule of the Ismailis in regions like Kazvin, Ray, Isfahan, and others sent for help from the Mongols to eliminate the Ismailis who caused them suffering. The Mongols understood the reality of the relationships between the Ismailis and the people in those regions. Despite sending some of their ambassadors to Karakoram, the Mongol capital in Mongolia. To congratulate Kublai Khan on becoming the new Khan of the Mongol Empire in 649 AJ 1250 CE, the Ismailis did not receive favorable treatment from the Mongols. Rukn al-Din Shah, the last leader of the Ismailis in Iran, tried in vain to avoid the second Mongol invasion, which ended the Abbasid Caliphate in 656 AJ 1258 CE, by holding up in the fortified castle of Alamut. However, the famous Mongol military commander Hulagu Khan sent a demand for surrender, threatening with retaliation and death if not complied with. Kershaw had no choice but to submit to the Mongol force in Shawwal 654 AJ 1256 CE. Subsequently, the castle of Alamut surrendered in due al-Qaeda of the same year after a brief fight. After ensuring Kershaw's safety, or so it seemed to him, Rukn al-Din attempted to seek an audience with Monkey Khan, the Mongol leader in Karakoram, hoping for fair treatment or a guarantee of his life. However, the Mongol leader refused the meeting. With only 2 Ismaili fortresses left unconquered, they decided to use Kershaw to persuade their surrender, which was achieved. Upon his return after submitting all the Assassin territories to the Mongols, orders were issued for his execution along with all his comrades. Hulagu was then instructed to completely eliminate all the assassins, leading to the killing of a large number of Kershaw's relatives. Many Ismailis were gathered for enumeration purposes, but were also killed, except for those who took refuge in the mountains of Fars. Thus, the Nizari Ismailis were decisively eliminated after a presence in Iran that lasted almost a century and a half. Remnants of the Nizari Ismailis still exist today in many countries, with one of the most notable being the Aga Khanis. The leader of this sect is considered one of the wealthiest individuals globally due to the followers of this sect, numbering around 10 million people worldwide.